Hi, is the moderator, the chair present for the next session, which is with me, Pam Bernard, and Laura Colucci-Gray? Are you here? Hello?
Professor Young Kim, are you
Hi
here?
there.
Hi.
Yes,
Hi.
hello. Hi.
How are
Yun,
you?
lovely to meet you. Both me and Laura are present
Oh, okay.
and ready and raring to go.
Okay.
Would you like us to, save 30 seconds by sharing the screen, or just trial the screen share, or, I've got it ready to go. Just give us the word and we'll screen share. Shall we do a little dress rehearsal, do you think? Or
Yeah,
are we
I
all
guess
feeling
so. Yeah, I
confident?
guess so. Actually, yeah.
All right, here we go. Screen share. Let's see how many seconds this takes. Share.
Okay.
And we put this up, and then we see that, and we go like that. And there it is. Yes?
Okay. Yeah.
You can see it?
Yeah. And
Okay,
Professor, Young
Yep.
Kim is the moderator of this session. I don't know whether
Yes.
he's here yet.
No problem at all. We're here, and if there's no moderator, we can do moderator less.
Okay.
We are incredibly flexible in this country.
Okay.
The people are amazingly flexible. In
Okay.
fact, I'd say plastic. If you're watching the politics of this place at the moment, stop sharing. You'll see how amazing people are. It's just the politicians that get it wrong. But I'm going to. I know you would back me up there, Laura. So we're back to normal. When whoever tells me to go, or it's now 9:11. It's according
Yeah, right.
now 9:12.
Yeah,
Do we
it's
still have
now
15
12.
minutes, or do we cut 2 minutes off?
I think we better start now. But
Yeah,
Professor
I
Kim,
think.
Professor Kim, 김영훈
Hello.
교수님.
Yeah, I'm
네,
here. I'm
계세요. 빨리
sorry.
해주셔야 돼요.
Yeah, I just arrived to my office after another special guest talk. I'm sorry, I have a quite busy timetable on today's.
Yes, it's okay.
Sorry about that. And anyway, so
Yep.
can you start now?
Yes. So I'm putting on my timer for 15 minutes, and I'll incorporate. No, I won't. I won't do that. That's far too generous. I won't put that on until I actually get. There we go. Can you see that?
Okay. Yes.
Can you see? Okay. All right. Yeah. So are we starting now? Now, start. Yes.
Yeah,
right,
ready.
Okay. So
Okay.
Yeah. You have floor.
So,
yeah.
Thank you. Let the cameras roll. Let the cameras roll. Hello, everyone. We are so delighted to join your UCAS conference this morning. Thank you so much for accepting our paper. And I'd like to welcome my collaborator, friend, and innovator, Laura Colucci-Gray, who's in Edinburgh. I'm in Cambridge. And our third speaker, who is voiced but not present, is Carolyn Cook. We're presenting on the vital materialism of making with inanimate things and thing power. And I've just witnessed so many presentations doing this just prior to this one. And those three concepts, those three terms are what this particular 15 minutes is all about. And all around, we're looking at the future making of convergence or STEAM or transdisciplinary education. We're thinking here that in this presentation, co-presenters will share the assemblage of examples of the material vitality, the vitality of examples of inanimate things. And these are three separate projects, but we have actually written together, bringing them together to see how they converge and how they assemble and theorizing them. The idea of elaborating on Jane Bennett's 2010 philosophical tradition of critical vitalism is where materials matter in teaching and learning. And you see this all the time. This is not new to convergence or STEAM education, but here we're elaborating, making with which is where everything becomes together in constant processes of making each other in interaction with material objects. And so we're really foregrounding the prevalence, the centrality of material objects in this relationality of learner and teacher and the processes of making with, and we'll give you implications for the future at the end of this presentation. And we're building on, drawing from this, building on, not just drawing on this book, which was published in 2021 and 2020. And you'll see on the front, it has a rhizome that's been altered by an artist. So it's sort of science, where science and art meet. And a rhizome has no beginning or end. It's always in the middle, between things, intervening, a perpendicular direction, a transversal movement that sweeps one and the other. A rhizome creates the unfamiliar. And so this is central to our message today and to our analysis of making with, of which you can read and I know listen at the same time. We're educators, we're multitaskers. But to be rhizomorphous is to become a becoming that effaces stable identity. So we welcome sort of fluidity and porousness. It is performative, it is gestural, and it is in the space of entanglements where bodies, visual art culture, education, and diverse forms of research are interrogated. But more than that, they're ruptured. And so in that relationality, that rupturing is the act of democratizing creative educational experiences through convergent education. And I pass to my colleague and friend, Laura.
Okay, thank you, Pam. So we will present evidence from 3 projects, which are brought together through a central overarching question. And it is really, how do science and arts teach together and enact vital materialities? And these vital materialities are fundamentally democratized and creative educational experiences. So as Pam said, we draw upon and build on these 2 concepts of think power and making with, which collide and converge. They come together in making these vital materialities possible in education. And we will undertake the fractal reading of the evidence of the project through a posthumanist stance, which enables us to look at and interpret the experiences that we will present, the empirical material that we will have here, through different viewpoints. And we will draw upon the posthumanist literature, which is both reading with, but also reading without, in order to cast new light on the present vital materiality. Pam, if you could.
Yep, I'm on it. Think
So
power.
the first concept, which is think power. Now, think power refers to the material co-constitution and vitality of bodies. So any bodies, the capacity of things, which are things that are edibles, commodities, computers, weather phenomena, storms, metal, things that we normally look at as being inanimate, passive, just material that has no agency. We look at those as quasi-agents or forces with trajectories that have tendencies of their own. They articulate a vibrant materiality that runs alongside and inside humans. They interact. So these things are actants that are sources of action that can be either human or non-human. They can literally do things, they perform work, they create realities. So these are things that have distinctive capacities. Material has agency. So think power is fundamental in its convergence theme because it reconceptualizes our very reality of being educators and doing educational work. It's not simply the work of the single teacher, of the single student, or the brain or the hand. but it's a distributed swarm and agency of congregational, confederate relationalities. So this, according to Bennett, think power enables us to see reality as living, throbbing confederations that have reality-making capacities. And this capacity resides in one's response to the assemblages in which one finds oneself participating. So we are putting think power to work in our projects, and we use the related concept of making with, which is indeed a condition of think power. It is very much the condition of this materiality that comes together, these throbbing confederations that make these entangled mosaics of vital matters, which are inter and interactive manifestations. Making with and think power, therefore, generate these rhizomatic eruptions that Pam talked about. They generate ongoing patterns of diffractions across time, space, and bodies, which make difference and differences that matters. They intertwine, they collide and erupt into a multiplicity of configurations. So we work across different educational contexts. We are not bounded by primary, secondary, or other levels, but we want to capture through our 3 studies this deterritorialization of disciplines, and we will perform transdisciplinarity. These 3 studies were selected and brought together here to speak to one another as they bring together experiences across international contexts, the UK and South Africa. They are across academic and practical subjects, music, math, visual arts, science, gardening, and across different student populations, respectively further education, teacher education, and primary education. So this very diversity of subjects and participants reflect and enact the throbbing configurations, and they enable us to explore this very wide range of diffractive possibilities that STEAM discourse can enable us beyond the kind of traditional proposition of STEM plus arts. We are actually searching for a much more radical methodological innovation. So diffraction understands phenomena as inherently different and differing in terms of time, space, and matter, but these phenomena are fundamentally and profoundly and deeply relational. Okay.
So we're now going to take an absolute helicopter flight looking above big data sets. Here is one from 200 drawings. It's a sample of 200 drawings by South African Praetorian secondary school students, and this too is written up in that book, and it is a collaborative piece with colleagues whom I know are present today, and it's great to know we're all together here, but representing this piece in saying that this is, it was an invitation, a competition to show the meeting of mathematical and visual art knowledges, skills, and understandings, and the thing power and vitality of bodies, the self, the hair, the skin, and the vital capacity and agency of pencils, technology, culture, design, identity, act as quasi-agents, you know, distributing the agency and the forces and the propensities of these young people who are working across the porosity of the borders between the human, the more than human, and the non-human. The stressed Vitruvian man on the left in the middle line, with his body inscribed by mathematics and his racial identity performed through the drawing, like the gender identities of the girls, top left and bottom right. You see their gender identities performed, and they're using number theory and string theory to enact the performance, the presence, the growth, the insider-outside aspect of hair. So we see the enactment of choices, you know, and we see mathematics performed in the ecology of human and non-human elements. We see in these drawings a convergence of mathematics and art, and the distinctive thing power, the efficacious powers of particular material configurations, including technology. and different kinds of technologies, and how art is an agency and the material of art becomes an agency, as well as the mathematics. So making with the materiality of mathematics really facilitating, you know, the creation, the transgression of knowledge to something new. The girl who did the piece on the top right says this: the thing that makes my artwork special, I'm quoting her words, and unique, is that I cut some of the tessellations out of the face to expose the background. This allows the face to be the center of my artwork. Though I tried to use a pendulum effect that did not turn out the way I was hoping for, ain't it the way, I had to make that mess work. To make that mess work. This is why I also think that my artwork is unique, is I tried something different and then made the mistake part of my artwork. This girl is going to be amazing designer and inventor. She said, I expanded my knowledge. The art took me over and beyond. I also looked inside. If we look at the next slide, which is again the same project done in India, and I'm just going to say, again, we see the thing power, but the meeting of the agency of, here in this instance, art with folklore, with folk traditions, and the object of folklore. Next slide, please. Here we go.
So for, yeah, thanks. So for Bennett, talking about think power means to think of agency as not simply human. It is this potential that is expressed as movement, as intensity of the trace on a paper, for example, but also as difference. And it is bleeding outward like an ink spot on paper, rhizomatically, intensifying its capacity to combine with its surroundings. And so is the experience in the gardens. The practice of gardening works exactly like this. Shoveling the soil bleeds into an olfactory and tactile experience of bodies that give forms to each other, and they themselves take forms. So we are not thinking about power as something that is imposed upon as an external force to a brute, inert or inanimate matter. But what we are observing in the garden instead, it is through think power, a communicative experience, which is understood as a relational ecology of putting things in common, in communion, as children take form themselves, their bodies changes through their interest in the plants, and also the plants take an interest in them. So this is very much the meetings of subjects, of spaces, and their own performing flesh. I think, Pam, we can move to Caroline, otherwise we'll have time.
Okay, and because we don't have time, we're going to move to the last two slides. Can you just abbreviate what you're going to say here in 15 seconds, and I'll do the same. Second last slide.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so what new understandings of educational practice do think power and making with offer to teacher? Essentially, as we said at the beginning of this talk, making with and think power is where everything becomes together in a constant process of becoming. I think one of the key points we really want to bring home today is very much the involvement of the body. So this encountering of forces, the throbbing assemblages are not esoteric and abstract concepts, but they really make visible these very bodied encounters in the production of meaning making. So it is very much body knowledge and body work. And in this sense that we understand education as being formative, in a sense that it gives forms to one in the world.
Thank you, thank you. And going on to the last slide, schools, what do we need to do? How and why should and can vital materialities matter? Vital materialities matter. Schools need the vitality of curriculum reform to make a shift which gives voice to a vitality intrinsic to materiality, where structures highlight the active role and distributive agency of human and non-human elements as they work upon each other. And we don't think that the non-human and the more than human has enough airplay or allegiance in curriculum practices. So transdisciplinaries are about, and you know, we're preaching to the converted here, I know, with this community of amazing educators and researchers, changing the idea of schools from closed environments to porous systems, making with the vital materialities of their different settings and communities in order to create sustainable and future-making education practices. Here are some of the references, especially the Bennett on the vibrant matter. We thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Thank you very much for quite well organized and integrated presenters. I mean, this is where quite a few times of combining more than 2 presenters together, which deliver. But yeah, thank you very much for your presentation, even though Professor Bernard has quite tough timetable and her schedule. So, well, as you can see, so many people, and now is on the floor. So, and Pamela and Laura, you can see the some of the questions. So, do you want give your answers and now, if you want, because I was told that you, Pamela will leave very shortly after that.
Actually, I had a cancellation of another event that was clashing with this, so I'm staying. I'm here.
All right. Okay.
I have colleagues that's presenting next, and so something is cancelled. So I shifted everything, as we do, because we are agile, aren't we?
All the time.
Okay, Laura, do you have any comment, Laura?
Well, I'm just wondering whether this idea of vital materiality, which is kind of quite biological in many ways, whether it has any resonance with the people in the room, because when we talk about STEAM, normally we think about technology and inanimate objects. So how do people see this coming together of stuff that is quite soft, like biology, and stuff that is quite hard, like technology?
Yes, and when you see the chatting box, and some of the people give their there are warm messages with support, etc. And Christopher as well send his comment, and many people.
Can I say why they're commenting is because actually Christoph Jolt and Chris Brownwell were collaborators, authors, co-authoring on the math artwork in Pretoria and India. And what we're doing now is moving that work on and applying this post-humanist lens, using these concepts of, asking the question, what does the work of those concepts do that enable us to move forward, the idea of STEAM education or convergence education, and actually get into the inside of how those materials act on learners in a way that we haven't acknowledged before. And with the person, Carolyn Cook, I feel really bad that we didn't have time, because I was trying to show, true discipline as we are as academics, of course, not to go over time. But Carolyn's work also shows in a transdisciplinary classroom of teaching teachers music and science. She works with Play-Doh and the materiality of Play-Doh, and works with materials that normally you just think are conventional instruments, but she works with them as sort of scientific objects, and so looking at objects and materiality in a flipped way is what we're doing. I see Christoph is his hand up.
Okay, yes. Okay, Pamela, I think, it's automatically next presenter will be the parallel position to discuss your further comments. So Christopher Brunel is waiting for his presentation now. And as you can see the proceeding timetables, the next presenter is Christopher Brunel with his colleagues from the Finland and Estonia and Austria. So the title is a framework for digital competence development in STEAM education. Okay, so Christopher, ready to present? You have floor.
Do you hear me?
15 minutes.
Do you hear me?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so just to make link between these two presentations, I have a question, sorry, for the previous presentation, that I think this concept of the materiality and thinking with, making with is very fruitful. So we are working this together very, very efficiently. And you mentioned the technology aspect, which is very much related to the materiality, but also more connects to the medium. So I like a lot, but maybe we need to think also about the materiality as mediality, and how to include the technology as a certain kind of materiality aspect. What do you think about this?
Could you, when you say mediality, is that not modality, but mediality? It's the mediating.
Yeah, media as also sort of material aspects. The media as something what transporting or you know, making connections. So that's the material also.
Right. Christopher, I'm sorry for interrupt. So would you be able to discuss where after all presenters delivered their presentation? I mean,
sorry, I misunderstood. I thought that you opened the discussion.
No. This is my fault. I mean, as a moderator, so I missed to announce the question and answer time allocation. I'm so sorry about that. So anyway, I lost my control from my.
But I think so. Then the floor is for Chris, and we might say something about the technological aspect. But this mediality might be a connection between our presentations. What we can think about together in the as a next step. So Chris, the floor is yours.
Yeah. Okay. So greetings, everyone. Thanks, Christoph and Pam and Laura. Yes, we want to put two big thumbs up on your talk in agreement. We will be crossing over in many ways. What we are talking about today, what we're trying to present, is a work coming from an Erasmus Plus project. Christoph will introduce a little bit of the background, and then I'll come through and talk about where we stand right now and give you some pictures and tie this all back into convergence and STEAM education. So Christoph, would you mind leading up?
We are very lucky now with Christopher Brownell because we are in the same country. That's not so much happening, but Chris is here as a guest researcher in Finland for 2 months. And this gives us the opportunity to work closely together also on this STEAM upgrade project. This is a European project. Chris, maybe you can go to the next slide to show the map of the contributors. We see only your, so that's not full screen, Chris, so we don't see the next slide yet. We are stuck in the first slide. I don't know if you can project.
Let me stop that share.
Okay.
And try this again.
Okay, so until you start the slides, I can tell that we have Estonia as the coordinator of this project, and we have partners from Austria. Yes, this is it, from Austria, Spain, Norway, Hungary. So from all parts of Europe, to say so. And as you can see, as you will see from the presentation, we have a lot of collaboration with Pam, Laura, and their colleagues also in these investigations. Next slide, please. And our target group, so-called, is the pre and in-service teachers. So the teacher students from 3 different levels of basic education. So early childhood, primary and secondary education. Next slide, please. And we started to think about the phenomenon that STEAM is not that well-known concept, and it also can happen that many teachers doing STEAM, but they don't call it as STEAM. And also there are teachers who are doing STEAM, but they got afraid when they hear the word STEAM. So the technology is changing very fastly. There is also many gaps in the teacher education and also in the professional development programs for the teachers. And also the curricula are not necessarily supporting that extra time what is needed for this STEAM project. So this gave us the background for our project. Next slide, please. And then the floor is yours, Chris, to talk about the solutions.
So our purpose in creating the framework was actually to design and create training modules for teachers with the specific aim that the teachers become become familiar enough with the STEAM concepts that they can support their learners' key competencies, the European key competencies, what are also known as 21st century skills and 21st century goals of education. Plus, we sought to we are seeking to integrate the digital competencies that come with from the DigComp EDU process recently published. This is a scientifically sound background. It's built on well-researched premises of and it's a solid framework in which that can be adapted to implement within various regions and around various training programs. We seek to design a STEAM framework that incorporates both the digital competencies, which will allow students to become lifelong learners in both the digital areas, but also in the rest of their career. And so as we were working through this, we came to this, we tried to define what are the STEAM competences. And as we were looking through these, it became, it's a little unclear because of that ambiguity that makes for very creative environments. So what makes up what are the STEAM competences that might also tie in with the digital competencies, 21st century skills, or the key competencies for learners? And we got to thinking, what are some of these descriptors? And so an important piece of this, and ultimately this is, I just want to point out, this is a model that's in development. It's not a finished project. It's not a finished product, but we envision a network, more of a neural network of ideas that fit within Pam and Laura's rhizomatic sort of a vision where we link across and through and incorporate multiple connections between concepts. So what are some of these concepts? Well, one major idea is within STEAM is the idea of collaborations. What's going on? What kind of collaborations do we see? We have collaborations between schools. We have collaborations between students. We have students and teachers collaborating to learn. We have schools and the larger ecosystem that surrounds STEM. And so working with industries, working with corporations and businesses to help inform teachers of what these 21st century or key competencies are, and help them keep those in the forefront. We see also this concept of integrations and cross pollinizations that I hear regularly in my mind. Pam's voice, the multi, cross, inter, transdisciplinarity ideas that are incorporated within STEAM education. And the pedagogical approaches are really critical. We envision a very broad collection of pedagogies. They should be inquiry-based, should definitely be student-centered and student-driven. They should include all students from every ethnic background, every racial background, and ability background, encompassing all students and their visions all at once. Plus, being very holistic. So a STEAM competence, or a framework that would incorporate a broad definition of STEAM would also incorporate well-being and consider it to be part of the overall goal. Now, that connection, we see holistic and well-being minded as a pedagogical approach, but it's also a goal. So we have to envision this as this mind map, as you see it here, which is sort of two-dimensional, as being multi-dimensional, so we can have linkages between goals and approaches, goals and integration, or goals and content. We have we need to have the ecosystem informing goals, not just living on its own, but each of these things has connections to each other. It would not make sense to establish a framework by which we could evaluate training modules around an integrative approach that wasn't integrative in itself, or wasn't integrated. So we have to think of it in that. So we view, in short, that STEAM education goes beyond the 5 siloed subject areas and seeks to transcend them all. And in doing that, in transcending them, we bring together all of them and more for the learner. So STEAM is not an insertion of the arts into STEM, but it is in fact an ethos. It is an approach to learning. It is a goal to learning, and it is an overarching plan of attack for how we can help students become more whole and attack the thorny problems that they are going to be facing. One major aspect that we see within the content areas, and this connects to the digital competencies and the 21st century competencies, is the idea that students will work with messy problems. They will attack wicked problems, as they've been phrased, and not be necessarily seeing their content as in these, and I used it before, the silos where they're separated, but instead learning the mathematics that they need to address the problem that they're seeking to address. Because of this, we also see, therefore, art not just as expression, but art as a problem-solving approach. And that's why arts need to be a piece of STEAM, of the STEM mindset, but they need to be incorporated throughout because they do solve problems. We do solve problems through artistic, creative means. And with that, I'm going to, I'm pretty sure that's my last slide. I'm going to stop a little bit early and say, I hope it's early, and say, can I answer any questions? And Christoph and I answer any questions.
Right, Christopher Brunel, Christopher Brunel?
Yes.
Yes, so your presentation is finished now, and
yes.
So as I announced before, so our session's question and answers will be allocated to the final one after the last
Okay.
presenter.
Sorry, then I won't answer any questions. I'll just move on and hand it back to you.
Right. Thank you very much for your presentation, Christopher Brunel and his colleagues across the Europe. And so I just was told that was told from the local committee, and one presenter in this session was not able. Well, we're not able to present because of her family affair. So we have two presenters left. So in theory, each presenter has 15 minutes, but we can have extra, I think it's 5 minutes more, so extra 5 minutes. So next presenter is Professor Jung Eun-young with her PhD students. So Professor Jung, I think she's ready for presenting.
Yeah.
Yes, okay. So
thank
you have Professor Jung, you have approximately 20.
Yeah, the co-researcher, Hee-jin Kim, is not my PhD student. She is a PhD in musicology from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. And I am in art history and she is in musicology, but she is currently moderating the other session, another session. So she cannot, she is not here. So I'm doing the presentation alone. I hope it's okay. But can you see the slide? Okay. Can you see the slide? Fine. Okay. Okay. So the title of the talk is a presentation is situating Remington's experiments with color music within interdisciplinary research and convergence education. Actually, we were intrigued by Alexander Wallace Remington's book, Color Music, which was published in 1912. We just happened to find this book by chance, and we were very interested and started to work on this book and kind of historical analogies between sound and light. So basically, this is an ongoing research, and I'm kind of presenting our research done by far. Okay, so this study aims to situate Remington's experiments with color music within multidisciplinary endeavors to integrate color and sound in late 19th and early 20th century art, especially synesthetic arts in color theories and optics. But today, because of the time limitations, I will just focus on his color music and color organ, and a little bit of light waves and color waves, which we got very, very interested in. Okay, so by positioning Remington's color organ within a history of interests in the multisensorial correlations, and by specifically focusing on his method of establishing the structural analogies between light and sound, the light spectrum and sound vibrations, we try to explore how the analogies between the light spectrum and the musical scale can be approached and ultimately applied in convergence education. Okay, so who is Alexander Wallace Remington? We found that Remington was a British painter, engraver, etcher, illustrator, and professor of fine arts at Queen's College London in the late 19th century. Aspiring to a new art of mobile color, freed from artistic or pictorial conventions, he built a keyboard instrument called a color organ, and he patented it in 1894. And it was one of the first successful, I believe, instruments that projected different colored lights in coordination with music. And in 1895, Remington gave a talk and demonstration of color music in St. James's Hall in London. And in 1912, he published the book that we got interested in, Color Music, The Art of Mobile Color. And he described in that book how the color organ worked. And this is the cover of the book. And this is Mr. Remington in front of his color organ. Okay. In a talk that he gave at St. James's Hall in 1895, he said, quote, "My aim has been to deal with color in a new way and to place its production under as easy and complete control as the production of sound in music. Until now, color has been presented to us without mobility and almost invariably associated with form. We have not yet had pictures in which there is neither form nor subject, but only pure color." So he tried to invent explore this new art. And this new art introduces three novel elements into the use of color, viz. Time, rhythm, and instantaneous combination. Notes of music and notes of color can, in these respects, be treated in exactly the same way. Very interesting. So Remington actually believed in the physical or structural equivalence between light and sound because, quote, "the different colors of the one and the different notes of the other are both due to various rates of vibration acting on the eye or the ear." And he, in order to translate sound into color, Remington equated the 7 spectrum bands of natural light with diatonic intervals, which compose the musical octave. So you see here, we have, so actually he kind of equated 7 colors of the light spectrum, kind of correspond and the 7 colors of the spectrum to the 7 notes, different notes of the octave. And eventually, so he equated the 7 spectrum bands of light with the diatonic intervals of musical octave. And eventually he developed 12 chromatic scale, as you see here, for 12 musical tones, and projected kinetic colors in coordination with the performance on the keyboard. So you see here this keyboard on piano, and we have 7 white keys and 5 black keys. So in total 12 keys, 12 tones. And he kind of made, out of the 7 colors of the light spectrum, he made this, 12 colors, mixing some to equate them with the sound. or musical notes. And here is the example of chromatic scale in music and color, showing correspondence of intervals when C is the lowest spectrum red. So C, this C is kind of equated with the red of the spectrum. Okay, now how the color organ worked. It seems that the color organ had a 5-octave keyboard similar to a church organ. Church organ has 61 keyboards in total. And this color organ had a line of color keys situated above the sound keyboard here, probably around here. I think these things are for projecting the light. So a line of color keys was situated above the sound keyboard and connected to a lens and filter system, so that color was actually played and performed. So in a powerful white light was produced from an arc light of 13,000 candle power, because they had no electricity at the time. So candle power, which passed through 2 lenses or prisms, providing a color spectrum. And these colors were then mixed and projected onto a white screen, as you can see here, very simple white screen, under the control of the operator or the player using a keyboard and pedals. So these are the basics of the equating the light spectrum and the musical notes. And he was quite an engineer. He was very, very interested in mechanical engineering, even though he was a painter and etcher. So he actually built this church organ himself. Okay. So I think it is very interesting because his experiments with the correspondence between color and pitch of the sound, the height, the pitch of the sound was very different from the earlier or contemporary attempts to find analogies between sound and color, because contemporary kind of experiments with this correspondence between color and sound had largely been based upon the symbolist notion of synesthesia, mostly spiritual or mystical or really psychological. So symbolist artists created paintings mostly, evoking mystical, spiritual, or psychological analogies between multiple senses. For example, to Vasily Kandinsky, who was one of the pioneers of abstract painting, as you know, to Kandinsky, colors evoke a vibration of the soul, or an inner resonance, the so-called inner resonance, which is a spiritual effect in which the color touches the soul itself. We see Kandinsky's color study done in 1913. This is a watercolor, and it is well known. Kandinsky was very, very interested in the synesthetic aesthetics, synesthesia, and he started abstract painting based on the kind of spiritual, identification with color and sound. Okay. Unlike other symbolist painters, Remington took a pseudoscientific approach to explore the relationships between light and sound, and attempted to liberate color from pictorial forms by introducing the element of time and motion. And Remington's color organ is one of the earliest, I think, kinetic art or the origin of mechanized visual music, even though it is very, very old and, you know, we cannot imagine, okay, use of candle power to project white light passing through prisms. I think it's kind of very old, but still very technological kind of adventure at the time, I think. And in fact, the interest in the relationship between color and sound has a very long history, stretching back to Isaac Newton, or even all the way back to ancient Greek philosophers like Pythagoras. So in optics, Sir Isaac Newton included a color wheel in which he matched each color of the spectrum with different musical notes on the border, as you see here. So he already thought in a double way, not just, you know, he not only found the spectrum, but he also thought of the spectrum in terms of music or musical scale. So making an analogy between musical notation and color notation, Newton divided the circle by musical scale, starting with D. Very interesting. If we start the color with red of the spectrum here, then he start with D and ending with octave D. And as you know, in Munsell system, you know, Munsell invented the color wheel, of course, influenced by Newton. And this was quite a long time. This was the standard, you know, color wheel in color system for a long time. Okay, since Newton, many scientists, artists, and musicians have speculated on the correspondence between color and sound, as you can see here. I found this article, which was published in 2020, this year. But I found some mistake here. Yeah, because for Newton, C was not red, C was violet. Yeah. But anyway, yeah. So a lot of scientists, artists, and musicians have been interested in the correspondence between color and sound. And I think the British chemist George Field, his system is very, very interesting because the correspondence between colors and musical sounds suggested by him is very sophisticated, very, I think, more, I think it is more kind of appealing. You know, it has a lot of different elements of music and color as well. But anyway, so I thought that I have to look at sound waves and light waves in order to understand, in order to find whether we can really equate sound and color, right? So, okay, sound waves, both sound and light are waves, and both are vibrations, it's true. But sound wave is a mechanical longitudinal wave, whereas light is electromagnetic, as you well know, and transverse wave. And sound waves have very long wavelengths. The audible sound range is just about 7 centimeters to 17 meters, which is very long. But light, as you know, it has very short wavelengths, right? Visible light ranges from roughly 400 to 700 nanometers. So it's very, very short, hence different frequencies. So light and sound, I think I have to finish soon. Okay, light and sound. So though sound and light are both waves, the range of their wavelengths and frequency is very different. Light has an extremely short wavelength and tremendously high frequency, while sound vibrations have long wavelengths and relatively low frequencies. So unlike Remington, who equated the spectrum bands to 12 notes in the musical octave, starting C as red, it is possible to identify the middle C on the piano keyboard, middle C, with the middle color of the light spectrum, right? Starting C as yellow, yeah, so like this, so different kind of color scales for music. But actually, there may be tons of different, suggestions. Because while it is possible to establish an analogy between pitch and hue, musical tones and the light spectrum, we can make analogies, but there seem to be little empirical or scientific evidence supporting the necessary alignment or connection between them. But still, I think the correspondences between sound and color is very, very important, and have attracted so much interest over the centuries. And it's still today, they are considered very important to understand not only human perception and human psychology or emotion, but human beings as well, I think. So it is very, very important. So I think it doesn't matter whether there is an objective scientific law for us to equate light and sound. I think so. This is the area of art to explore the correspondences or psychological, emotional, or spiritual analogies between sound and light. So Remington's color music, in conclusion, and color organ can be a good, very interesting starting point, I think, for interdisciplinary research on the relationships between art, music, physics, psychology, and engineering. And I have very few suggestions or applications for convergence education, but this is just a kind of passing thoughts. So color is a helpful tool when teaching and developing using music literacy. Colored notation is actually widely used for young musicians and new readers to identify different pitches, because it's really difficult to memorize all the notes and keyboard. So with color, kids can learn better and more easily. So they actually use color for music literacy. And we can, in a higher level of class, we can introduce science into color music and learn about light waves and sound waves, and explore the characteristics of light and sound, and light and music, and make our own color scales for music. And this was the third one was the question I just came up with during the research. In terms of the alignment of color, color has three characteristics mainly: volume, pitch, and timbre. But it is the connection between color and pitch that is most widely interested artists and scientists. And why is that? Why color and pitch? Why not color and timbre, or color or volume? So would it possible to explore the correspondences between brightness and loudness? And actually, I found that there is a lot of research on this, light, brightness, and loudness, volume. But between hue and timbre, I think the analogies between hue and timbre is more going to the area of art. Yeah. So, and lastly, I just found some mobile synthesizer app that turns colors into sounds, which is called Roy GB, of course, the rainbow color, and so play with apps and figure out how the translation of color into sound actually works. I think to try to find the mechanism or the scientific law would be very interesting. And that's it. Yeah, thank you. Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much,
thanks for
Professor
sharing.
Chung, so with your colleagues in the state, which is personally give a great interesting to me as a geographer and also a cartographer. So many cartographers have been talking about the visual literacy with attractive color to increase visibilities. So which color is mostly detective, easy to detect, or which color is a least detect, etc., etc. So anyway, so we can discuss the later. So as I announced, one presenter is not going to present because of her family affair. So we have a little extra time. However, as we planned for this session, so when you see the proceedings timetables, our coffee and tea break time start at 6 p.m. On Korean time, or yes, Central European time, 11:20. So, well, I would like to ask you to have break time and now, and then the second part of this session start at 6 p.m. Korean Standard Time and 11 or in Central European Time. So this session adjourned by the 6 or 11 a.m. in Central Europe time. Okay, thank you. And
well, so yeah. So
oh, okay, yeah, Professor, yeah.
Okay. Well, I I couldn't type the answer, or to Pam. Well, they're not asking questions, but I think color has really kind of strong affective material kind of affective. People one may think that just as psychological, but I think it's really bodily. And in a way, in that way, really materialistic. It's a material. It's a very, very, extra tiny particles. Yeah, but it's material, right? So yeah, I think the material aspect of color is really among other materials. I think color has a really vital materiality because it especially affects us directly, and your emotions or psychological conditions can change totally in an instant because of color, right? So I think it's really true. Laura and Pam, it's true.
Yeah, and also I will ask one or two questions in the discussion time. But however, when I heard the Professor Young's presentation, my gut feeling is to apply the artificial intelligence algorithm
right.
to make some sounds. So after that, what about the colors?
There must be
which artificial intelligence make some sound. So well, I will ask in the later. So
there are actually a lot of apps or programs that actually synchronize color and sound. And these days, every color on the monitor, we usually experience color on the monitor, which is very different from earlier, experience, right? But in monitor, everything is RGB system. red, green, and blue system,
Yeah.
it's all mathematics. It's all numbers.
Yes,
So
yes, it
I
is.
think it's a totally different phase of experiencing color now.
Yeah.
So in terms of materiality and in terms of kind of human and inhuman interaction or intra action, I think this change of phase is very important, I think. Yeah. Yeah, because it's getting more and more cybernetic or virtual.
I mean,
Yeah.
when you apply blue and red color to cartography or on map, so visually red colors shows a little bigger size, whereas blue colors shows least area size, even though with the same land area. So the visual contact or visual psychology of a human being has deep respond to different colors. So anyway, right. I'm sorry. This is 20 past 6 p.m. On Korean Standard Time. So I think we need a coffee and tea break to wake our brain again. And then also it is better to concentrate in the next session of this this seminar, this conference. Okay, so
one more thing, just Pam, we haven't written on this topic yet. And Hee-jin Kim, musicology, and I are planning to work on this topic together. So
good.
Yeah, planning to publish it. Okay.
Fingers crossed. Okay, anyway, have a good break with your tea and coffee. So until then, okay, thank you very much for attending this session and see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very
감사합니다.
much.
Yeah.
Yep. Muchas
Thank you all.
gracias. Thank you very much. 감사합니다.
Thank you.
Thank you.